Hello everyone, in this video we're going to set up character customization. This will be a different approach than in the Create a Game series, and it will be applicable to a lot more different types of assets. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all of my Patreon supporters for the amazing support. This scene will be made available on Patreon. So here we are in our scene, and I'm going to drag in a basic character model. Now the reason I wanted to do a different type of video is because in the Create a Game series I was using Cinti Modular Heroes, and that package basically behaves really different than most of the other Cinti packs or any other type of pack you might find. So often hair, beards, stuff like that will be attachments. They won't be, well, the setup will be different compared to Cinti Modular Heroes. So what I'm going to do here is let's grab a different, just a basic soldier. There we go. Perfect. So I'm going to unpack this prefab, and yeah, let's get rid of his attachments. And in this case, the attachments include his hair, etc. Now I'll keep the rest, but you can take it all off and just take the same approach. But I'll keep the rest for now. So there we go. So let's do soldier male base, something like that. I'm going to put his position to 0 and drag him in here. Don't replace. There we go. Let's take him out, and this will be the one we're going to put on the player. So there we go. Now I've removed all of his hair, etc. because I want that to be modular. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up skin tones, we're going to set up different hairstyles, beards, and we're also going to set up how to color those as well. Now this will be a different approach compared to what I did in the previous video, but it will be better. So let's go to UI, canvas, where's canvas? There we go. Let's make this also a bit more interesting. So this is completely unnecessary, but I want it to look slightly better. What should we have as a background? Yeah, it has a sky dome, not a, okay, interesting, but sure, why not? Don't need the light. Yeah, need all of this. I'll need the ground around this as well. Sure. And let's add some of the mountains. And let's add the sky dome. So again, this is a unnecessary step, but it just makes it look a lot better with minimal effort. So I'm going to create an empty here. Let's call this environment. Paste this all in. There we go. Now I actually do need this to be slightly different. So I'm guessing I can't select the sky dome. Where is it? There we go. Yeah, that's about 90 degrees. And there we have our player. That looks good. Good-ish. Cool. So I can get rid of this one. Don't need that. Most likely this won't be needed either, but just in case. There we go. And let's copy this one over a couple of times. There we go. Cool. So yeah, unnecessary step, but it looks cool. So now when we well, once we'll check the camera, you'll see. So let's move the player up a tiny bit. And the entire player. There we go. Let's turn around this camera. Perfect. So we have our little preview indicating slightly what it will look like, and we'll yeah, that's good. Basic but good enough. So I'm going to add a on start here, and let's add a trigger. Should have just done that the traditional way, obviously. So on start, player is controllable is going to be turned off. Cool. So let's head over to our canvas, as now everything else will just be done. And let me turn all of this off. We'll be done on our scene here. And you know what? I'm actually going to turn off the sky dome. I don't want the sky dome. Cool. So here we have it. Let me duplicate this and actually separate all of these things. Don't need the plane. Perfect. So this will be our character customization. I'm going to set scale with screen size. Again, you don't need to do that. I'm hitting play once just to make sure it is scaled properly. As you can see, our player is up quite a bit actually, but we'll change that later. And there we go. So first things first, I'm going to create a panel. This is not going to be a stretch. And we'll be able to scale this. Let's set to some default values. No, that's too much. 400 is not enough. 600, that's better. and by 160, 140, that's better. Cool. I know I'm messing around a bit with the settings, but that's fine. Let's add a image here. Cool. Cool. So the reason I'm doing panels is because I want to duplicate certain things a couple of times, and I don't want to have to set everything up. So I'm going to divide everything in panels, and this will make a bit more sense in a bit. So first things first, let's add a list variable here. And yeah, just so we're clear, I'm using the Cinti Polygon Military pack. You don't have to, you can use whatever you want. It's just to highlight that this approach will be different from the Create a Game series, just generally speaking a lot more applicable to other assets and to literally all of the other Cinti assets as well. Polygon Modular Heroes just is quite different from everything else. Customize character. There we go. So on this panel, we're going to have a couple of options. So let's get started first with text. We need to explain what it does, and this is going about halfway. And let's do, well, we can actually start with genders, a different type of option I didn't even think of, because it's a lot easier to set up, but let's do that as well. Make it white, and there we go. Cool. Then we're going to add another text, and this text is going to be a game creator text, so this will be a variable text. We'll copy over the same settings. So we had 38. Yeah. So 38 white. Going to set this to the other side. 38. And the color white. Perfect. So I'm going to remove this, so the formatting, I don't need to see variable in front of it. And this will be tied to a global variable. So let's set those up as well. So preferences, let's go to variables. And let's add so I'm going to do string here. And the reason I'm going to do string is because this is text, of course. So we need to have display number. We'll set up more variables, so that's why I'm adding a bit more detail to the text. And the default value will be 0, 1. There we go. And that's it. That's literally all we're doing in this one. So you can see here what it looks like. You know, it filled in, so it's the same size. But yeah, we don't need any of that. Perfect. So I'm going to change this name to text variable, just so we know what everything is. And this will be text title, just so we know what everything is. And then we're going to add UI buttons. So we only need 2. button. Yeah, don't look at the design here. Obviously, the design is completely up to you. So let's do 20, and let's change the panel background color as well to yeah, something like this. Cool. So this button, I'm not going to do text here. Let's add a image. And I'm saying that, but I'm pretty sure I don't have a arrow. Well, yeah, that's an arrow, but it can't be set to white. Okay, so yeah, sorry, I don't have an image for that in this project, so I'm actually going to do text just to cheat a bit. So oh, so that's the wrong one. There we go. So yeah, I don't have an arrow, so I'll have to do it like this. So let's do overflow, bold, and yeah, I mean it's kind of an arrow, sort of. So this list variable is going to contain objects. But we don't need that for the general one actually, so let's do it like this. So how wide is it? 238. Yeah, perfect. So we don't need that for this one actually. So let's model, character model, player, and we'll select the male character here. I'm not even sure why I did the arrow, because we don't need the arrow for this. So this one will actually be text. So male. And female. So now we just need the prefabs, and I had one for male, and afterwards we'll add one for female as well, just so they're complete. There we go. And yeah, we'll add one for female as well, just to have it all complete. Now I'm going to make this all squares, just so it fits slightly better. Same with the buttons. And there we go. So gender, male, female. It's a bit big, all of it actually. The entire thing is a bit big. Yeah, it looks better. Yeah, sizing was all a bit much. Cool. So yeah, pretty basic, pretty simple. So here, there's not much to set up because we're just swapping character models, and those can be predefined. An easy way, we only have two options in this sense of models, male and female, and that's pretty much it. So easy to set up, not much to do about this. We can make this a bit smaller now that the panel is smaller as well. Yeah, cool, there we have it. So let's get started with the more interesting part. So this is the first panel, and we'll go to the next panel. So now these buttons will contain those arrows I was talking about. So let's drag it out down first. So that's fine. So first arrow, what was it, 60, and bold. Yeah, that's fine. Perfect. So this will be, let's do skin tone. Not sure if those are two separate words or not. I'm not sure. So skin tone basically means we'll be applying different materials. Now this is hard because we can actually swap out models, meaning we don't know which model we're actually going to apply something for. So that's where the list variables will come in. So we're going to create another global variable as well. So let's add one, and this will be a number. So skin tone. I'm not sure why I always tag everything. I don't really know what it actually does. It just seems more reliable. So panel skin tone, just so we remember what it is, and panel gender. Perfect. So now these buttons will actually do something else. So they are going to execute actions, and this will make sense in a bit, of a list variable, and that's the list variable we have here. So this will be next, as the arrows indicate. Then we'll wait to finish. We'll copy over that action, and this one will do the same, but then it will do previous. And yeah, that's it. So if they execute actions, that means we need some actions to execute. And when it comes to skin tones, I assume they'll have 3. If they have 4, great, but we can add that after. And I'm going to keep those all here as well. Now the reason I'm childing everything here under that panel is because when I duplicate this, I don't want to have to recreate everything again, and this will make it so that I won't have to. So what we're going to do here is variable string, and I don't know why I did a global variable on this. So this text variable will actually need to be a local variable. Sorry about that. So display number, there we go, string, and this will be a local variable. And I'm putting it all in here just so everything's tied together. It doesn't have to be separate. So default value will be 0, 1, so we have 0, 1 displayed here. And then the actions, so local variable, there we go, display number, so first action is going to be 0, 1. Now I know we already have that, but keep in mind when we press the arrow, we are going to go to the next, so that will be the next in line, which will be 0, 2. So we have that, so global, no, what is it, number, there we go. So global variable number, skin tone, 1 as well, perfect. Then we'll duplicate this, and in the next actions this will be 2 and 2 and 3 and 3. Now if there are more, I didn't check beforehand, but most of the polygon packs only have 3. We can add one after. So this is what we're doing with our list variable. So we're executing the next actions. Now the first item is going to display the default that we have set up. So 0, 1, and 1. Now we need to add it as well, obviously, because we want to go back to that action as well, or just cycle through it, and we need to get there too. So basically when we press the buttons, we are executing actions from the list variable with next and previous. So this is the list variable, has 3 actions. So it starts off by default with 1, that's the first one, but when we press the button we go to the next one, which will be 2, and then, next and previous, etc. So now our character model needs to do something with that. So the reason we're doing this on with just setting a global variable number is because beforehand we don't know what character model we are using, because we can basically swap them. As you can see, we can have male, female, so we're swapping out character models. So how do we define that? So let's go to our, let's save this just to make sure. Let's open up our character model and we see him from the back. So we can collapse all of this, and as you can see, the entire model has 1 material. So on that very model, so we need to make sure that we put these triggers we're going to add where we have the materials. So that's why you can't ever do it on the base, so just use the invoker or anything like that, because the base doesn't have a material, so nothing will happen. So let's go here. So we need to add a trigger, and we need to add 2. So we need to add an onEnable, and we need to add a variable change. So variable change skin tone. And we'll need conditions, and the onEnable will use the exact same conditions. So we're only going to set up 1 set of conditions, and that's it. And the reason we have 2 times, so we need some actions to happen once we change the variable, but we also need to keep onEnable on, because if we swap models, so we suddenly say like, oh, let's go back to female instead of male, then we need to make sure that the color tone that is set in our editor automatically gets applied to this model as well, not that we have to go cycle back through those editor colors, because that doesn't make a lot of sense. In an actual game it wouldn't make a lot of sense. So the way to make sure that the character model is displaying both of those is by having onEnable, because it's going to check the same conditions. So if, and let's set those up. So if number, global variable number skin tone is equal to 1, then change, what is it, material, and the target renderer is invoker. Now we're doing invoker, so that's why I said it was really important to add those triggers on the actual mesh with the material, is because copying this, we want to be able to copy this over to the female character, but we're also going to use this for hair, for example, and we just want to be able to copy over those conditions as easy as possible, so that's why we're using invoker here. So now I actually need to check, so it seems like we might actually have 4 skin colors. I should have checked that beforehand, but that's okay. So let's actually have a look if these are all different skin colors. I assume they are. Nope, they are not. Okay. So yeah, every Cinti pack does skin color slightly differently. So this is skin color. So yeah, we have 3 of them. Okay. So, cool. So let's duplicate this clause. And here it's important, always click create new actions, because otherwise you're just going to be editing the same one, and press keep both. Now we can just copy over those actions. Then drag in this one. And let's close that first clause. Duplicate it again. So I'm going to copy over those actions, but create a new one, keep both. And now we need C. And that's it. Now let's make sure these are correct as well. And there we have it. So what this is doing is on the model enable and on variable change is going to cycle through conditions, and the conditions are going to check what is the number of skin tone, 1, 2, or 3, and then it's going to apply the appropriate materials. And by adding on enable to the mix, we can make sure that even if we swap out models in between, that the new model we get automatically applies the selected skin tone based on the variable as well. So it's actually really simple, but you know, you need to mess around with it a bit. So there we have it. So that's literally all we need to do for skin tone. So let's actually make sure it also works. So I'm going to hit play here. So yeah, we'll need to fix the flying character as well, obviously. And yeah, this is not centered, but yeah, this is not doing anything. So let's have a look at why it's not doing anything. And it is, yeah, obviously. Okay, it is. So sorry, forgot about that. So in our onStart trigger, we need to add something as well, because the model we just dragged in on the default character player by default, yeah, this one. There we go. Obviously doesn't have those changes I just applied. Now we can copy those conditions over on the default, but you know, instead of that we could just onStart model. What's the quickest way? There we go, player, and we can just nothing is seen in assets. Character male base, there we go. That's the model we added. So that will be done on default on start of the scene, so we can make sure that we have all of the actions set up properly. So let's try it again. And there we go. So that's it for skin tone. We'll take the same approach for hair as well. And yes, we'll set up the female character in a bit too. So let's go to the next section, and that will be hairstyle. Now this is a slightly different approach what we're going to do here with hairstyle, but not all that different in the base setup. So the buttons are still going to just cycle through those list variables, so we can keep all of those actions the same. It's just the list variable actions that will be different. Now the first one is not going to be different, and as you can see, it refers to the text variable that is part of this one, which is here. And that's why it's you know, it's actually so important to make sure you can just duplicate all of this stuff so you don't have to set everything up again. So let's drag you down a bit. I don't know if the spacing is correct. It's definitely not, but fine. That's more appropriate. So these actions are going to be different. So on the first one, I want to have the bold action, so that's the default. So we're going to use attachments for this, player, and remove. So the default one is bold, so when we cycle back through this one, we need to make sure that he stays bold, so that's why we're removing, and we're removing from his head. There we go. So then in the next actions, we're going to keep that as well, because we need to make sure the hairstyles are not going to stack on top of each other. And this is where it gets interesting. We need to attach something as well. Now I'm going to keep this to 3. Obviously you can add 100 hairstyles literally the same way. You know, whatever makes you happy. But I'm going to keep it to 3 because, you know, the actions are the same, so it's the same point. So attach from head, and let's go to prefabs, characters, attachments, and hair 1 and 2. So remember, option 1 is bald, so we're only going to attach 2 hairstyles. I want to see what they look like. So let's do 2 and yeah, let's do this one. So 2 and 10. I want them to look really different, so it's obviously we're actually attaching something else. So 2 and 10. We need those actions as well. And 10. And yeah, that's that's it. So let's change the name. We can close this back again. So hair style. I think that's one word, I'm not sure. Cool. And before we try this out, I'm just going to head over to the next step. We need the hair colors as well, obviously. So I'm going to duplicate this panel of skin tone, and the reason I'm duplicating the skin tone one obviously is because the skin tone one does colors, and we'll need to take the same approach here for colors. So hair color, yeah, I'm not sure. So this is hair color, so let's name that appropriate as well, hair color. So again, all of this remains the same, and when it comes to the list variable actions, this will be pretty similar as well. The only difference here is that we'll need a new global variable, also a number, and this will be hair color. And that's it. So hair color, hair color, hair color. Cool. Now I'm going to create my own materials for this. Oh, should have done that the right way. So let's remove that. So I need a folder. Materials. I already had a materials folder. I'm not paying attention. So let's create hair 0, 1. Cool. Now I need to know what this looks like, so what I'm going to do here, so let's open up the hairstyle so we can actually find where they were located. There we go. Cool. So I'm going to add lighting here. Well, let's do it without lighting first. So let's look up hair 01. So obviously this is not pretty, but that's okay. So hair 01, and let's do, I don't know, guess this is brownish. Is that brown? I'm not really sure that's brown. That doesn't look that brown to me. There we go. Seems better-ish. Well, play around with the colors. Then we need 2 and 3 as well. So I'm just going to literally drag them on the model so we can see what it looks like. So we'll do black. That's the easy one to do. And oh yeah, blonde. Let's do blonde as well. It's blondish. I don't want it to be yellow. Yeah, cool. Now I'm going to drag this default back, and this is not a pretty brown. This better. It's maybe too reddish. I'm not sure. It's fine. Whatever. Cool. So here we're going to do the exact same thing. So we have two triggers, a variable change and a on enable. Now, like I mentioned before, we want to be able to duplicate this really fast. So what we're going to do is let's open up our mil base, copy over those conditions, and I'm going to make things slightly easier actually, so I don't have to go back and forth all the time. So characters, attachments, where was hair? One, no, only using 2 and 3 here. 2 and 10, I mean. So let's paste in those conditions. Condition, condition. And like I said, we want this to be something we can easily swap. So now I just need to select hair color. This will be hair 01. This will be hair 02, and again hair color, and hair color hair 03. Now obviously I only have 3. You can have 10 different hair colors, 20, 30, whatever you want. It's literally just, you know, the same. Cool. So let's do the same for our other attachment. And obviously set up the amount of hair colors you want first on one model, and once it's done, you know, obviously go ahead to the next one. So you can copy over the same conditions. So on enable, variable change. Did I do that on this one? No, I didn't. Cool. And now these conditions, if I actually copy them again, yeah, they're all the same, and we don't need to do anything here. It's already all set up. So that's it. So override, apply all. Now if you don't want to override the default prefabs, obviously create duplicates, but you can always just import them again, so it's not a big deal. Cool. So we can remove those. And unless I missed something, that should literally be it. So let's get started. So yeah, we can swap skin tones, different hairstyles. Can't really see it here, but this is the black one. Now if I swap different hairstyles, you'll see that it remains the black hair, and that's why you need that on enable, so that even if you leave the hair color on 2, that when you swap hairstyles, the hair color swaps appropriately, so it stays in place with the new hairstyles. So that's it. I'm going to show one little thing, and this is applicable if you are using Cinti and maybe other assets as well. I have no idea. So what if, for example, you want to add a beard as well, and by default Cinti will map the beard on the head bone as well, and you can't have that with the way this is set up, because we are using attachments here. And when we swap out hairstyles, we first remove what is currently on the head. So if you do beards and hair at the same time, you'd be removing the hair as well. So it's not going to work. So let's duplicate this over. I have no idea about spacing. No, it's too much. That seems about right. Cool. So let's call this hair beard style, or just facial hair. Actually, that makes more sense. So facial hair, because if you have a mustache, for example, you know, it wouldn't be a beard. So I copied over the hairstyle one on purpose because we're using attachments again. So again, you want to, you know, have the least amount of effort when you go through all of this. So just make it as easy as possible. Now we can't attach the beard to the head. It's just not possible, unfortunately. So I'm going to do a little cheat here. So where is our player? Let's go out of 2D mode, player. And I remember why he's floating. It's because of the colliders here. So mesh collider, need to turn it off. This is not a playable scene anyway, so let's turn off those mesh colliders. Let's turn off those mesh colliders. I'm not sure why I'm pressing off the wrong things here. There we go. So I think that's, oh no, this one interacts as well. Cool. So obviously we do need a collider because the player should not be falling through the ground. So we're going to add a cube here under the player. Yeah, cool. That's fine. And just turn off the mesh runner. And we have the collider. Cool. So he'll stay in place. Now, what we're going to do is on the default character, we're going to go to root, hips, spine, spine again, neck, and then head. And we're going to attach a beard. Where's beard? Yeah, there we go. Now the reason why I'm attaching this is so you can see, you know, by default it will work on the head bone, which is something we can't have. But I need to see how it's placed, because what we're going to do next is we're going to go back to our 2D mode. Let's focus on that character customization screen. And in the facial hair actions, we're going to attach this to a different bone. So I'm going to do jawbone here because it's the closest one, just makes the most amount of sense to me. So jaw, jaw, jaw. Cool. Now again, first one is just going to be shaven, so obviously no actual model here. And then we're going to add beard 1 and 2. I don't really care about which ones they are. But the first one needs to be the same. Now obviously this won't look good. It will be displaced because it's not supposed to be attaching to the jawbone, it's supposed to attach to the head bone, but we can easily fix that. And that's interesting, because that's in the middle of nowhere. actual model not have a jawbone? That would be interesting if it doesn't actually have a jawbone. So yeah, that cheat doesn't seem to work because it doesn't seem like our player has an actual jawbone. So as you can see, it's literally just attaching this to nothing. So, okay, that makes things a bit more complex, really. No, there's a jawbone. Okay, that's interesting. So let's have a look at what's happening here when we press those actions. All of this is working fine, and then we get the beard being attached to nothing. And as far as I can see, the player actually has a jawbone, which is really, really interesting. But it's not attaching anything to the jawbone. So but it is removing it from there. Interesting. This is interesting. Not in the good sense interesting, obviously, because it is supposed to do it the right way. So I want to see something just... so let's do neck. I used different Cinti models, and those were able to use the jawbone just fine, so that makes this really interesting. Yeah, so neck is working. So now they're, as you can see, they're not in the right place, obviously, but they're on the neck. So I'm not really sure why this is not recognized as a jawbone. So I'm going to have a quick look here at the player avatar. Oh, configure, yeah, save the scene. And let's have a look here. So head, there's no bone actually attached to jaw. And that's okay, because we can add that. So there we go, jaw. And apply. And done. So now if I hit play again, because I'm pretty sure I kept all of the actions to jawbone in the editor, we should be able to apply this on the actual jawbone. So I'm saying all of that, but let's actually double check the actions. Yeah, okay, so everything is set to jaw. And there we go, it's working. Perfect. So now it's attaching this to the jawbone, and this was not intentional. I really just assumed the character model would have been, avatar would have been set up the same as with other Cinti packs, but apparently it's not. So obviously the placement is wrong. So how do we get the placement right? So let's head over to our character here. And placement is actually not that wrong. It just... seems a bit too low, and might be a couple of other things. So what we're going to do as well is we're going to find that beard. So let's go to prefabs, characters, attachments, and we're going to find that same beard, so beard 1, and we're going to attach it to the head. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I want to know how I should be placing this one. So as you can see, the rotation is slightly different. Similar-ish, I think. Yeah. Okay, I'll get rid of the one I put on the head now, because I don't need it anymore. I can just mess around with the placement now. Needs to be a bit up. And alignment is still slightly off. And yeah, close enough. I mean, play around with it a bit more. Now we have these values and we need to duplicate, copy those values. So I'm using the snipping tool literally. So this way I have, you know, the exact position, and this will be the same for all of the beards. It's just the placement on the jaw. So let's go to our list variables, actions, and let's copy over those values. So obviously I have them on my second screen. If you don't have a second screen, it's slightly more annoying to use this at the same time. But yeah, just take a picture with your phone or something like that. Cool. So I'm going to literally copy over this action because it's just easier to do this than rather copy over all of these values again. And perfect. So there we have that. So I'm going to hit play again. And now we have different facial hair as well, and we have different hairstyles, and they all match. Now if you want to set up different hair colors, for example, different colors for the beard as well, you can do that the exact same way we did it with hair. Literally no difference. So just copy over these conditions, make sure you have a new variable for hair, of course. So in that sense it would be you know, hair color as a global variable, and that's it. So pretty simple, pretty cool. I said I would set up the female character as well, but you know how to do it. Just literally create a new model and use it to so you know, do what I do with this base one. So remove all the hair from the player, helmets, all of that equipment, and you know, set up the same conditions, set up the same actions. It's all literally just the same work. So that's it. That's you know, that's literally all there is to it. I'm going to add one more little thing which I think is cool. Not really necessary, but I do think it's cool. So I'm going to add a button here. Let's go into 2D mode. So 200, 200, that's way too big. 100, 100, that's better. So let's do -100 as a position. And 100, so they're aligned, perfect. So we're going to do a transform, rotate, player, self. I'm not sure which one should be minus and which should be positive, so we'll have to try that out. Let's do linear, linear. So yeah, one of them has to be minus and the other one, I'm not sure which one is which. So obviously, you know, use proper icons for your buttons, but in the meantime, I'm just going to be using the same cheat again. There we go. What is it? 50. I'm not going to set up the button colors here. You know how to do it. There we go. So let's try this out, and otherwise we'll just swap the minus value. And you know, obviously have some cool animations play at the same time. So a gesture that literally plays at the same time. And that way we can rotate our character. Now the reason I'm doing that is because, you know, it's obviously really cool if you try this out and you want to actually see what it looks like. You can actually rotate him around. And yeah, that's it. I mean, I know, you know, some games will have you use the drag option, which you can do as well if you have Action Pack 1, I think, from P-Veg Labs, which has a drag to rotate option in there, which is cool. If you don't have that Action Pack and you want a slightly more analog mean, I mean, Call of Duty Modern Warfare uses the same, just have buttons rotate on 90-degree axis, so it's not like it's a bad thing or anything like that, but it's a cool way to have your character actually rotate along so you can actually proper check out all of the changes. So that's really it. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.